Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After you through the news you need to know about, we're into the fan Q&A answer fans' questions. So much to talk about in today's show. The Dolphins have had a phenomenal offseason, starting with the Vic Fangio acquisition, which is huge. This week was amazing. We're going to go through all of the signings, all of the major ones for sure, and some of the players that we lost and some of the players that are still out there that hopefully, there's one guy that I really would hope that they re-sign because he played well last year. But so much to talk about. The Dolphins had another phenomenal week in the offseason. We will skip some of the preseason contracts, like very low-level guys like Gaskin. We re-signed Ahmed. We re-signed Dan Finney from the Jets is a guard. He can be depth. We'll see what happens in the preseason. So just to run you through some of the quicker ones. But, there's a lot to talk about. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors, and this is this was a dream scenario for me. It was one of my hopes that we would get this player, and this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins to sign quarterback Mike White from the New York Jets. Obviously, this is a big deal. Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson played terrible for the Dolphins into his when he was gone, when he was out of the lineup with the concussions and some of the rib injuries he sustained last year. This was a huge signing. I really wanted Mike White. It was between him and Mariota. He's a phenomenal pocket passer, obviously familiar with the division. I think his ability to throw, and especially in weather areas, which I think is a big deal because for whatever reason, every time a Dolphins quarterback gets hurt, it's either on the road to Buffalo or on the road to New England for whatever reason, or on the road to it's always a divisional game on the road to MetLife. I mean, literally all three times that's happened in the last 2 years. So it's nice to have a quarterback that's familiar with the division and who has shown he can throw in terrible weather very, very well. And he's a very good, like I said, very good pocket passer. Had a lot of really nice tight window throws on third and long. And he was behind a really bad offensive line. So he has a lot of talent. He knows how to play the position at a high level. When you watch him play, I will say there is one thing that kind of bothers me with him. But then he shows the ability to still be able to keep his eyes downfield and make really tough throws down the field. But sometimes you can watch him play and he's like, this is a little bit of a check down, Charlie. I think that had a lot to do with the offensive line because when he got protection, and it wasn't like he was just waiting to throw it to his check down like a bad quarterback would. When he got protection and got time, he was able to make some really high level throws. So that doesn't worry me that much at all. When you look at his stats, they're not very impressive or extremely impressive with his stats last year. He had he had a 58 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So when you read that, you're like, it's not good. But when you watch him play, I really do like his game a lot. I think he fits the team, fits the scheme really well. And above all else, he has 2 things that the other 2 didn't have. He's a good decision. Well, 3 things that the other quarterbacks didn't have before. He's a great decision maker. He keeps his eyes down the field and can make tight window throws. And he can see the field and read the field at a high level. That was something that was really missed. I don't know why it was such an issue with Teddy Bridgewater because he is a veteran quarterback and you would expect that from him, but for whatever reason, there was just a lot of plays left out on the field and the backup quarterbacks were in to the point where it was unacceptable. I mean, if you go back and look at the New England game on the road or the Buffalo game in the playoffs on the road, there's just so many plays that's like, okay, that there have been touchdowns easy in both games, the games that I just said, that were touchdowns that were missed to Tyreek Hill of all people. You would think that's the guy you would look for. But the point is that this is a phenomenal signing. He can come in and play really good quality minutes if Tua does get hurt. He can win a game for you. He's a starter. He's like a bridge quarterback starter in the NFL. which I think is very hard to come by. And he can make some high-level throws down the field. He showed that when he was with the Jets. And again, didn't have the best offensive line last year. Obviously had a ton of issues with the offensive coordinator. I think him coming into a more talented offense, if he did have to play, he could play at a very high level. So to me, this is a great signing. It's one of the players I really wanted in free agency. And it's way better than what it was last year. Because when we signed Teddy Bridgewater last year, I did not like it. I've never been a fan of Teddy's. So this is a huge upgrade. So they got a lot better at that position in the offseason, which is great. He does, like I said, things that he does better than Teddy. Has a stronger arm. Can make tight window throws, which Teddy could not do. And he's a better decision maker and sees the field. He's just a better all-around pocket passer. He's a bigger player. He's a bigger dude. He's 6'5". So it's just all around a great upgrade. The only thing that I was like, that kind of hurts is that Matt Ryan was let go, like I think two or 3 days after we signed Mike White. And maybe it was even more than that. But that would have been interesting if we could have gotten Matt Ryan to back up Tua. I think that would have been a phenomenal move if that was able to get done, just because he won an MVP in this scheme, in this offense. He's played a lot of really good football in his career. I think I would have been the most comfortable with that signing, but to me, this is the second best thing that they could have gotten. I'm a really, really big fan of this move, and I think all Dolphins fans have liked it so far. So great first step in the right direction for the Dolphins. And they weren't done. They filled a lot of issues this offseason, from defensive coordinator to all different kinds of positions. Okay, so let's go to the next news story. The Dolphins to re-sign running back Raheem Mostert, Duke Riley, and Jeff Wilson. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Both deals with Raheem and Jeff, which is weird that Jeff got paid more than Raheem. With incentives, Raheem can earn up to $7 million. It's a 2-year deal. Same thing with Jeff, pretty much. But it's an $8 million deal in total. Same contract, pretty much. Literally the same contract. Duke Riley coming back, which I think is interesting. He played a lot of minutes last year. He's a special team / depth guy. He's not a starter in the NFL, but he does add a lot of, comfort, you could say, at that position. Hopefully Channing can step up and kind of take over that role. The Dolphins all signed another linebacker, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But I do like Duke Riley. The only thing that I'm not in love with is bringing back Jeff Wilson. I love Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert was more of a playmaker than I initially thought he was. I really, really like Raheem Mostert's game. He's a really good player. I think he is 1,000% a above average starting running back in the NFL. Runs with a lot more power than I thought he did. He's, broke a lot of tackles last year. And I think the offensive line, especially with the year in this offense, should be a lot better. So that was a great sign. I was not a fan of what Jeff Wilson did at the end of the year. Didn't make a lot of people miss in one-on-one situations at all, especially in the Jets game. I thought he could have had bigger runs that were stopped short. He did make a lot of big plays though last year. He made some splash plays. The best one was on the road in the playoff game against Buffalo in that 4th and long, making that guy miss and getting down the sideline. That was awesome. So hopefully he can kind of recapture the Bears game and that play a little bit more than he did last year. He was a little bit inconsistent for me, but they need playmakers at that position. And I will say this, Raheem Mostert was a lot better in the passing game than I thought as well. So it was really nice that they were able to retain Raheem. I thought that was a big signing. I'm not as big of a fan of Jeff, but we'll see what they do in the draft. Maybe because it's more of a luxury pick, we'll see what they do. I'm a huge fan of Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. I would like to get a little bit more juice in the backfield behind Raheem Mostert, but it is what it is, But but it was a big deal retaining Raheem. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins to sign safety Deshaun Elliott, who's only 25 years old, which is kind of crazy. Let me see if I can't give you the details of this deal. It's a very short deal. I think it's a 1-year deal. Hard-hitting player, good box safety, really good backup, can cover a little bit, good instincts. I would say average starter in the NFL, which is good depth, behind Holland and Jones. I wasn't mad at what the safeties did last year, even after the injuries. I don't think McKinley, I thought, played well. Eric Rowe didn't play. He was very up and down. But other than that, I thought the safeties weren't terrible, but definitely helps in the run defense. He's a really good run defender, really good open field tackler. I think that's what he does the best. And he has bounced around a little bit, but he's young. This seems to me more of a Vic Fangio type of a signing. And like I said, that's another thing that I've really liked in the offseason is the communication with high-level people in the organization seems to be on point. So if this is a Vic Fangio type of a signing, it's great depth. And so, yeah, I like his game, too. He's a good run defender. So it's a good signing overall. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins officially released cornerback Byron Jones, saving them, I think, around $13 to $15 million. Again, this comes from, it's $13 million, excuse me. Good crate's $13 million, 13.6 according to Pro Football Rumors. It's unfortunate. Byron, his last year as a Dolphin played through an injury, and it was, you could tell. Even then, I thought he actually had a better year than Xavier. His last year as a Dolphin. His first year as a Dolphin was not great. He never really fit the scheme. It kind of reminded me of some of the moves that the Dolphins organization made in the early 2010s, really bad free agency moves. It kind of reminds me of that, even though he played really good football. He's a lot better than Mike Wallace, even in Dominic Sue. Even then Sue did have a playoff berth. I think, some of the stuff that he did was really good. And the reason I'm putting him over Sue is corner is a more valuable position. And Sue, for the love of God, alright, let's not even get into it. You know what? I might have changed my mind on that. You could flip him, but Sue's years kind of were awful to watch, I think, is what's really holding me back against that. The point is it reminds me of what we did early in the early 2010s, trading for people who didn't fit the scheme that we were in. And that was one of them. When he was in Dallas, heavy zone guy, didn't play a ton of man coverage. Then he comes to Miami, and then he's pretty much on an island a lot of the time. The New England scheme, unless you're Bill Belichick, and even now if you're Bill Belichick, is getting fried, really bad. So how much you want to really blame Byron, I don't know. It seems like he's going to retire, so it is what it is. But yeah, overall looking at that deal wasn't great, but they got out of it pretty easily. It's not something that's going to affect them like the Ndamukong Suh deal down the line, and some of the other bad free agency moves that they made. So again, tip of the hat to Chris Greer. He's managed the cap pretty well. This is a huge deal. This is a big time re-signing. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. One of my hopes of the offseason. Dolphins re-signed cornerback Nick Needham to a 1-year, $2 million deal. I think blowing his out his Achilles really hurt his market because he's one of the better, especially in man coverage, slot corners in the NFL. And he played really well on the outside when he had to because of injuries. He was better than Keon Crossan was. He great technique for a corner. Just knows how to play the position. Maybe isn't the best athlete in the world, but great tackler too. I think he really fits the scheme. I think allowing him to play more zone coverage, put less pressure on him, and when he has to play man, he's really good at it. but really, he's always had pretty good ball skills and a good feel for the game. So him playing more coverages and variety of coverages, I think is going to help him out as well. He's going to have to fight with Kader Kohu. I think they're both going to make the team because that's too, like, to have Nick on the team who you can move around and do different things with. And same thing with Kader. Kader could definitely play safety if he had to. I think both of them can make the team, but it'll be interesting to see who's the starting nickel back this year. There's a lot of competition for that spot. They're really talented at that spot. And I'm just really happy that they were able to retain Nick because he's a really, really solid player. Really insane with the Kader Kohu, who I think will be the starter if they compete for it. I think he'll end up being the nickel corner. But that is an insane secondary, like really insane. And again, I think a lot of these guys are going to benefit from the scheme switch because, Vic, everywhere he's gone, has elevated the talent that he's had. So he's going to be working with a lot of really talented players. And, I think Jalen Phillips had an underrated season last year. A lot of, like Bradley Chubb, everyone is going to benefit from that, and including Nick. Okay, so let's move on. Another phenomenal signing. This was a huge need in the offseason, even though it doesn't seem like it. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins add Braxton Berrios from the New York Jets. I don't know why they don't just put the dang deals where they should. It's like buried underneath so much nonsense. I believe it was a 1-year deal. They don't have the money here. But the point is that it's a short deal. I'll look at the deal while I talk to make sure to give you guys the details. But great punt returner, has had over 2,000 return yards with the Jets over the last few years. Never really turned into the slot receiver that I think a lot of people thought he could be. Maybe he can unlock that. He has a lot more talent than River Craycraft. They're very similar players. Braxton actually has good hands. It's not like he can't catch the football. His receiving stats are like severe, like underwhelming, but he has the talent to be a good slot receiver. He was great on gadget plays for the Jets as well. But I mean, it was a huge need to get a special teams returner. One of the weakest parts of the team was special teams, if not the weakest. He adds a lot of juice to that room and should be a very valuable returner. You know what? Very similar to Wes Welker. Maybe he can unlock that part of his game. Like, he hasn't developed like Wes did early in his career. But it's a 1-year deal. Excuse me, to stay on track here. It was a 1-year deal of $3.5 million. So it's nothing. But one of the biggest needs was to getting a returner, and this is a guy who could become a starting slot receiver in the NFL. He has the talent to be that. He's really good at gadget plays as well. That's something that Mike could utilize. So he can actually have some offensive value as well. So that was a phenomenal signing. I really like that deal. This was heartbreaking. Dolphins add punter Jake Bailey. They agreed to a deal. They lose Thomas Morstead to the Jets. They add Jake Bailey. Always kind of makes me nervous especially if it's a special teams player. Obviously, that's Bill Belichick's. That's where he started. And they have, I don't know. We'll see. Jake Bailey, obviously a former Pro Bowler, left-footed punter, which everybody loves to bring up every time a New England punter punts. I guess not this year. Yeah. Jake Bailey, hopefully he can, recapture some of the Pro Bowl magic. Because Thomas, I thought, had a good year for us last year punting the football. That's all I really have to say about that. And again, this was an area that the Dolphins needed to renovate with special teams. I don't think Thomas actually had that bad of a season, but getting better on special teams is a big deal. And if they think Jake Bailey is a better punter, then great. And Braxton Berrios, which I think does 1,000% improve the special teams. And well, we're not even going to get into it. I was going to say, Jameer Gibbs can return kicks too. I'm just saying. This this next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors as well. Dolphins sign outside linebacker Malik Reed, adding much needed depth there. They were pretty thin at that position in terms of, obviously, the starters are phenomenal, but if someone got hurt, that would be an issue. This is a guy who has had 8 sacks in a year, I believe. Vic Fangio, defensive guy. This is clearly a Fangio signing. Again, I'm really liking the communication. That's something that the franchise has lacked in the past. Getting the right guys in the building obviously is a big deal. I want to make sure I'm right about that he had 8 sacks. Just want to make sure. In a season is what I'm trying to... Yeah, in 2020 he had 8 sacks, 5 sacks. In 2021, only 1 sack in this previous year. Only started in 2 games. So he's a good rotation guy. Decent run defender as well. Just a really good backup outside linebacker. Knows the scheme. We'll see if he makes it out of preseason. Because I hope the Dolphins, Melvin Ingram is out there, who I think is a phenomenal scheme fit and still has a lot of really good football left in him. Obviously Van Ginkel, who is awful in coverage, so somehow Melvin Ingram is better than Van Ginkel in coverage, which is very strange, but he's a lot older, so that is what it is. But it'll be interesting to see if they get either one of those two back. Van Ginkel, really good run defender, decent pass rusher. I think Melvin's a much better pass rusher, and if you had to drop him back in coverage, I think he's a better athlete even now. So it'll be interesting to see if they can still hopefully bring back Melvin Ingram. I think we covered... Oh, no, there's still one really big one that we haven't covered, which I don't know why that's not on here. Really, one of my favorite signings the Dolphins have done in a long time. I just got to get the figures here. No tackle. I think that's the biggest negative of the first week. A lot of high-profile guys were signed, like, obviously Orlando Brown to the Bengals. He didn't want to play right tackle, though, so that obviously would have been an issue. Jawan Taylor to the Chiefs. Mike McGlinchey, who was my favorite, like, that would have been a perfect fit. Got paid a ton of money to go to Denver. That was, and we'll discuss that here in a second. But because there've been news on the tackle situation, but I think that's the only real negative is that the Dolphins haven't been able to acquire a tackle to at least compete with Austin Jackson. And I'm sick and tired of hearing the Austin Jackson stuff. He has not played. He's literally gotten to or hurt. Like that's what a tackle's supposed to prevent from happening. But literally, it is what it is. I mean, what are you gonna do? This next news story comes from ESPN. Dolphins have signed linebacker David Long Jr. to a 2-year, $11 million deal that has an average annual salary of $5.5 million, which was a steal if you looked at the linebacker market, which was insane this offseason. David Long is a phenomenal. The reason he is getting paid so cheap is because the man has obviously had some issues with injuries, but he's only 26 years old. He's a great linebacker. Like, when he's healthy and he's playing, he's a really, really good. He could be a Pro Bowl level linebacker. Like, he is an above average starter for sure, and definitely could easily make the Pro Bowl. And I know a lot of people have compared his game to Zach Thomas because he's a little bit undersized, but he's a great run defender, great in coverage. And I like Elandon Roberts. I think Elandon got a little bit too much hate, but he's a way better player than Elandon Roberts, especially when he's healthy. So it was a massive upgrade at that position. They potentially got another star. I mean, he's one of the best run defending, according to the advanced stats. He's like second or third in the NFL in run stuff percentage with almost a 7, which is crazy. And he's good in coverage as well. Very physical player. He's good, really good blitzer. Just a really great instincts, really phenomenal, especially for the salary, just a phenomenal deal. And this is like a massive upgrade at a position which they've been trying to fix with Channing. Obviously, that didn't work out. Now that they have David Long, they have a really good player at that position. I'm sure Vic Fangio is very happy. I mean, the defense is just stacked. There is not a hole on this defense at all. I know some people would have argued middle linebacker. You can't argue that anymore. I know if people have brought up the depth at that position, they forget that we have Channing on the team. And I don't know if you'll get too much base defense out of Vic, especially in the modern NFL. So David probably will be your nickel linebacker for the entire. I mean, should be, unless Channing has I don't know. But I don't think there's a shot that he would start over David on third down if he was out there, or even first and second down. My point is you usually see more nickel than base defense in the NFL today. But if we had to get big, they could still throw in, Jerome Baker. Is still obviously on the team. But phenomenal player, great signing, pretty cheap too. I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully he can stay healthy. And the Dolphins have a really good training staff, so I hope he can play good football for us because he's a very good player. I loved watching him play. He's one of those players that's like, even if he wasn't a Dolphin, I would like him. I just like his game a lot. This last news story, and this was related to what I was just talking about. Because the number one thing I was begging for is a starting caliber right tackle in the NFL. They still haven't done that. They still believe in Austin Jackson, at least reportedly. But according to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, the Dolphins are trying to find competition for Austin Jackson, whether it's through trade. Apparently, they're interested in George Fant, who I think would be a good addition to the team. He's a solid player in the league. He's had a ton of starts under his belt. Obviously, I think he would be a good player to at least compete with Austin Jackson. I don't know if he would be like a significant upgrade from Austin Jackson, but he would at this point be an upgrade to Austin Jackson. Because Austin Jackson, he has played so up and down that I can't even label the man a starting tackle in the NFL. Until he can prove that, I'm not going to... He's one of the worst first-round picks of the last 20 years in Dolphins history. The Igbenogany thing, at least he got a game-winning interception against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That helped us get into the playoffs. What has Austin Jackson done? Apparently he had a phenomenal offseason last year. I hope, and then obviously got injured. And I don't know. I hope to God, and I'm praying, that Austin Jackson can turn into the player that he was supposed to be coming out of USC. Until he hasn't proved it. Go, for the love of God, okay? Go get someone who can at least compete with him. I hope the reports are true. Jonah Williams, who apparently is not happy with the Bengals. The only problem with that is that he doesn't want to play right tackle. So that's an issue, but maybe they can make a trade for someone else that we're not even thinking about right now. I hope that's the case. Taylor Lewan is still out there in free agency. I don't know if he's retired or what's going on with that, but he would be a phenomenal addition to the team. He would be a clear upgrade from Austin Jackson, significantly. And I know he's dealt with injuries and he's older, but if they're just looking for depth or / competition, why not go after Taylor Lewan? He can be a above average starter at that position. And again, the whole offseason, they picked up his option. Why wouldn't you make sure you're protecting him? I just don't understand that. It's the only thing in this. The offseason has been perfect. And again, it's not over yet, but it's the biggest need. They haven't filled it yet. They need to at least add to it. I'm interested to see what they do. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Even if George Fant isn't the starter, and I've seen people brought this up, if Austin Jackson beats him out in camp, he would still be a really nice swing tackle in case someone got hurt. So that would be a good. I don't know if I would be necessarily. It wouldn't. It wouldn't be the best thing in the world, but it would be something. It would at least be something. But all overall, I thought the offseason has been a phenomenal offseason. Like a really, really, honestly, this and last year's was great. This might be better just because, I don't know. I just like this offseason better. I like the Vic Fangio signing. I think that's a huge deal. Like a big, like people are not, like it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal. Josh Boyer was terrible. One of the worst coaches of the last 10 years. You could make an argument he's worse than Matt Burke. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's dang close. So, yeah, just a great first week. I hope they add a tackle this week. There is no fan Q&A this week. Unfortunately, nobody left a question. Very sad, but it is what it is. So, yeah, we don't have any fan Q&A. So that's pretty much it. 30 minutes of going through news, and again, David Long is another one, man. The defense is so much better than it was last year. I'm so excited to watch this team play. I can't wait to see David. David Long is I'm actually really excited to see him play in a Dolphins uniform. I really like his game. And same thing with Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, I still think is a phenomenal player. Like a top-level, top-shelf player in the NFL. He really is. And with Vic Fangio, I mean, come on, guy. Like, it's like a dream. It really is. Just figure out the right tackle position for the love of God. And maybe Austin Jackson is the move, everybody. Maybe he finally develops. Who knows? But that's it, guys. Perfect start to the season, off season so far. Just one last piece, and we'll see what they do. And again, before I get off, Austin Jackson has talent. He's really, you would think, I think right tackle might be even a better fit for him in his career as opposed to the left tackle. So there is still a chance, but from the stuff that we've seen so far, and again, he's had to play guard and he's been switched around. He's had so many different coaching staffs on the offense side of the ball. Maybe the fact that he's going to have some consistency can really help him come into his own. There's still hope there. It's not over, but it would be dumb to go into another season just relying on him. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think of the offseason. I'll see you guys in the next one.